And if you feel that you're not healthy and it's not going to result in additional gains, do what I did. Take a break and get that resolved. And then you can get back to your bodybuilding journey. Vigorous Steve here. Let's discuss why a lot of people can't seem to break 100 kilos or 225 pounds or get stuck at a particular body weight and never really progress beyond that point. And before you scream myostatin, let me address that first. Let me address this myostatin stuff. Okay. So, short cycles, right? Highly beneficial, and myostatin goes up after 6 weeks, and then you can't make any more gains. You're stuck at that body weight forever. What a lot of people don't understand is that the first 4 weeks of your cycle, you're making a lot of progress, right? Almost daily changes, and you're filling out and getting stronger. You're volumizing. That's not muscle. That's a lot of other different things, like increased mineral retention, or increased water retention, or glycogen retention, or nitrogen balance. All these things add additional size and strength without resulting in a significant amount of muscle mass. That's why you can do a 4-week cycle, blow up, come off, and 4 weeks later you're exactly at the same place as where you started 8 weeks before. Now you can take myself for an example. I recently came off steroids, and within 4 weeks I dropped a significant amount of weight. That's not muscle, because I was still training at almost the same strength. I lost a little bit of strength, obviously, but most of the strength was there. I would say maybe 90% comparable strength. So the muscle mass was still clearly there. But it's this glycogen retention, mineral balance, water retention, estrogen volume, right? A lot of the steroid bloat, that's basically how we have to call it, steroid bulk, is going away. The muscle remains, but cosmetically it looks significantly different. And then when you take a little break and you go back on cycle, all that steroid bulk returns. You get a little bit stronger, but really you don't build any significant amount of muscle mass during that period. You build muscle mass, but it's not significant in the total picture. And then the 5th week, the 6th week, the cosmetic changes, the glycogen retention, nitrogen retention, etc. has kind of peaked, reached its maximum potential on that particular dose of anabolic steroids. And then the perceived gains kind of tapered off. And then you can use myostatin as an excuse and cut your cycle short. But again, the amount of muscle that you built in those 6 weeks are not going to be significant. So that's why you're probably stuck at a particular body weight. You can continue this cycle, but if you always think about these first 4 weeks that you're making this cosmetic changes, which again, it's not muscle, it's just bulk, steroid bulk, you can't compare the first 4 weeks to the last 4 weeks, because it's in these last 4 weeks you probably built more muscle tissue now that your body is acclimatized to the increased amount of androgens and the increased amount of workload and the dietary changes that hopefully occurred in the meantime to keep you going in the right direction. It's in that point where you build more muscle. Now, I made a video about long cycles versus short cycles. If you have a particular amount of budget for androgens, you can watch that right here. I would highly suggest you watch that video because muscle takes a while to build up, and it's probably better to take a slow and steady approach to slowly creep you towards your goals instead of forcing it with an, probably disproportionate and unnecessary amount of anabolics. Because at one point, as you get more developed, you still need to increase the anabolics. So you don't want to create too much damage in the beginning of your cycle where blood pressure goes up and your body weight goes up and snoring and sleep apnea start to manifest potentially. You want to save that for the end when you're actually big, not steroid bulk big, because it's not real muscle. So a lot of people will never reach that point of where myostatin actually starts to inhibit the additional accrual of muscle tissue, building new muscle tissue. Most people will never reach that point. They're just comparing this 4 weeks of making tremendous progress, again, steroid bulk that starts to manifest, and they're comparing that to the later part of their cycle, thinking that gains are tapering down. Now, there's a lot of ways around it. And yes, gains do taper down when you're not paying attention to your sex hormone-binding globulin. Watch this video before we get into it. I would highly advise you to watch this video first because it's a lot more in depth than what I'll discuss here. Long story short, low sex hormone-binding globulin levels are not very favorable for anabolism because sex hormones, testosterone derivatives, anabolic androgenic steroids partially get delivered to tissue through the sex hormone-binding globulin receptor complex. And when your sex hormone-binding globulin is very, very low because your androgens are too high or you kept your estrogen too low, again, it's all discussed in that video, right? You're in an unfavorable sex hormone-binding globulin scenario. Gains will start to slow down. So you can use some of the practices which I discussed in that video to bring your sex hormone-binding globulin back up. And slowly but surely, gains start to manifest again. Yes, you'll be surprised. By increasing your sex hormone-binding globulin, your libido is not going to go down up until a certain point, but you'll never be able to raise your sex hormone-binding globulin to libido unfavorable ranges when you're on exogenous steroids, because those will suppress your sex hormone-binding globulin. You just want to raise them a little bit, increasing androgen-mediated gene transcription, besides the gene transcription that you get from the membrane androgen receptor. Of course, it's a lot of free androgens in the bloodstream, right? You have free testosterone and free dihydrotestosterone or derivatives, or 19-nors perhaps. They can all attach to the membrane androgen receptor as well as the nuclear androgen receptor because they permeate through the cell membrane relatively easily. So they have two places to attach. But you get additional androgen delivery through the sex hormone-binding globulin receptor complex, increasing the potential for nuclear androgen receptor binding, resulting in more anabolism. So, that's another pathway to get more anabolism. We discussed it in this video also. I mentioned it many, many times before, but let's package it up in a different way where we discuss stalling of progress and why you can't get beyond 100 kilos. Sex hormone-binding globulin is one part of that process. Another part of the process, which I mentioned a couple times before, is applying progressive overload to everything. Not only the training, where you add microplates to your workouts and try to increase the reps or the time under tension or use resistance bands. You're always trying to improve your workout capacity by using basic progressive overload principles. You're always getting stronger without sacrificing form or time under tension. Yeah, there's a little bit of a caveat there. I see it a lot of times with progressive overload. You know, you're in that 6-rep range, then you increase the weight, and you're still in the 6-rep range, but every rep is rest pause. You do 1 rep, and you pause. You build up a little bit of confidence and a little bit of energy for another rep. You do the same thing until you get 6 reps. It's not the same as doing 6 reps continuously, and you should really focus on making sure you get 6 reps continuously, or 4 reps, or 8 reps, or whatever rep range works for you, right? For me, it's 6 reps. I try to get 6 reps in a row, and then maybe, 5 reps in a row, and a little rest pause, a little bit of a breather, and then a 6 rep. And for other exercises, I do 9 reps, a breather, and then 3 reps to get 12 reps. Some exercises, I do 12 reps in a row, no matter what. And my calves are on fire, and I can't walk anymore, right? It highly depends on the exercise, which body part you're training, and how well that particular body part responds to a particular rep range. It's a long journey to figure it out, but once you do, gains will be aplenty. So that's the progressive overload when it comes to training, and you can incorporate the same principles to your diet. Discussed it many, many times before. You can also incorporate that for your cycle design. You make as much progress as you can, gaining strength, increasing calories, gaining strength, increasing calories, gaining strength, etc., etc. So you're back and forth until the calories make you fat, and then you have my permission to increase the dose. Incorporating progressive overload to your PED stack, or you add another compound on top. You're on testosterone first, and then maybe growth hormone, and then maybe insulin later on. So you keep the testosterone dose the same, your lipids stay the same, your blood pressure stays the same, and you get additional anabolism from the growth hormone and the insulin. All right? There's many different avenues to explore, but you slowly, incrementally increase your dosages as needed when the calories just make you fat. You don't need to go on a very high dose in the beginning, crushing your 6 hormone-binding globulin to abysmal concentrations, wondering why you're not making any progress, and then increase the food. That's the wrong approach. I made an entire ebook outlining these kinds of principles called The Off-Season Cycles with Bioidentical Hormones, because it's the bioidentical hormones that for most people, most of the time, don't really cause any deleterious health effects on there unless they're really abused, which is the whole idea of an off-season, so you don't have to abuse the drugs. You can abuse the training and really go to town, really abuse the training to the point you're going to war, maybe eat a little bit more food than is good for you. And then, lastly, you increase the PEDs to facilitate additional recovery without getting fat. So there's a whole ebook dedicated to it. I would highly advise you to give that one a read if you're struggling, making progress during the off season, and you can't push past 100 kgs, 110 kgs, 120 kgs. It's all outlined there. And the main point of this video, which I can't emphasize enough, is that you need to stay healthy, because you can't make gains when you're unhealthy. Really. Your body will simply start to reject additional muscle mass. And whether that's stress on your kidneys or your liver or your heart, right? Organ health highly contributes to how many gains you can make. And it's your sole job to always outweigh the gains to potential negative health ramifications. And there's so many different cycle designs or training strategies or dietary practices and health supplementations which can contribute or detract from your health, but it's your individual responsibility to keep yourself as healthy as possible. And if you feel that you're not healthy and it's not going to result in additional gains, do what I did, take a break, get that shit resolved, and then you can get back to your bodybuilding journey. Yes, it's a very hard pill to swallow that you have to stay back and you're losing a significant amount of gains. But muscle memory will return. And even though it might take you a year to resolve everything and build your mass back up, once you're there, if you desire, I probably don't desire to get back up to 110, 15 kgs. But if you do desire, it's maybe a process of 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, depending on how unhealthy you got yourself. Again, bodybuilding lifestyle is probably inherently unhealthy. No matter what even natural bodybuilding is somewhat unhealthy. Don't try to refute it. I've seen the blood work, guys. It's there's a lot of stuff wrong on drug-free athletes' blood work as well. Even with ultrasounds, there's things wrong. I've seen them. And of course, there's different stages of unhealthiness. So it really depends on how you lay out your cycle design and your dietary practices and the additional health supplementation and, the performance of blood work or ultrasounds to, be proactive about it and make changes to your protocol before serious health effects start to manifest. And the longer you can keep yourself healthy, the longer you can stay on cycle, moderate dosages, in a caloric surplus, and the more progress you can make. And then you'll probably never stall. Maybe the progress overall will be slower. Maybe you get a little bit impatient and you really want to force the drugs. But again, the more you force the drugs, the more unhealthy you're going to get. And it's this unhealthiness that forces you to take a step back or kind of prevents you from making additional progress, where your body simply starts to reject the drugs and the muscle mass and the food intake. So it's a careful balancing act, and it takes maybe years to master. But once you get really, really good at it and you're able to keep yourself healthy or reasonably healthy, acceptable parameters. Again, bodybuilding, there's always going to be something wrong in your blood work. If you keep your health to acceptable parameters, you should never stall. You can always make progress until age finally catches up with you, or your aspiration catches up with you and you realize that, maybe it's time to not be 115 kgs anymore, and I'll settle for a little bit less, meaning I can get away with lower dosages, lower food intake, and perhaps a little bit less effort in the gym. And again, guys, the key is to be patient, because building new muscle tissue takes time. You can't force it to come into your body overnight. And yes, I understand that most people make tremendous gains in the first 4 weeks of this cycle, and then it starts to taper off. But again, those are not real gains. That's just steroid bulk. You have to keep that into mind. And maybe it's good to start at a little bit lower dosages so you don't get bamboozled by the steroid bulk and think that it's going to last forever. Because it will certainly taper off. And once you get used to the increased amount of nitrogen retention, glycogen retention, etc., you'll simply have to slowly cruise along while keeping your health in tip-top or the best possible scenario it can be when you're using exogenous hormones. Again, it's never going to be perfect, but you can sure keep it in a very good condition, allowing you to keep making progress and progress and progress while everybody around you stagnates because they take too much steroids or they don't take it serious, they don't apply progressive overload to their training, their diet, and perhaps their dosages, and they don't do their blood work. And you're slowly cruising along, making 2 kilos, 5 kilos per year, half a kilo a month, maybe even less. But every year you take your progress pictures, you're bigger and denser and harder than the year before. And your blood work should look pretty comparable. It's a slow process, but if you're in it for the long haul, look into your health, short term and long term, and then let that dictate your gains. Really hope this helps. I know a lot of people will probably never reach their mass of choice because either their organs fail or they simply don't have the capacity to push their training intensity or the food intake required. Of course, it's always way easier to megadose the drugs, but in many cases, even megadosing the drugs, actually in the majority of the cases, 99% of it, I would say, megadosing the drugs will not get you to the goals. It's the training intensity and the food intake that gets you there, and we use the PEDs to recover from the training abuse, right? And that's how you get big. Hopefully, you won't stall incorporating some of the advice mentioned in this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. If you're interested in personalized advice, you can find the rates to my services in the services section. Contact me directly if you're interested. Show me your blood work, because blood work tells me everything I need to know to help you with the side effects that you're experiencing. In describing the side effects, it doesn't always pinpoint what the underlying issue is, but blood work usually, in the majority of the cases, does. So please, show me your blood work. Really, guys, can't emphasize it enough. Blood work, blood work, blood work, blood work. Follow me on Instagram at Vigorous Steve, Vigorous Crew, front of WhatsApp for you guys because you are always loyal. Thank you so much. You guys know what to do. Thank you for your likes and your comments and your shares. This channel is growing nicely and steadily and still making gains on a day-to-day basis without slowing down. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.